Hi, and welcome to Sprout Chat, our monthly conversation with marketing professionals designed to share insights with our community. You're here with your hosts. I'm Joe Huber, the customer community strategist here at Sprout Social.
I'm Olivia, our social media specialist at Sprout.
And this is our final Sprout Chat of 2019, and it's a great one. We're talking about celebrating seasons on social and how you can pin it to win it. We have Michael Ackerman from Pinterest to lead that conversation. Hi, Michael. How you doing?
Hey, doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We love having you. We're so excited. This is a really exciting one for us.
Yeah.
We're excited to talk about seasons in social.
Oh, yeah. So we always like to start with an icebreaker, and since Small Business Saturday is coming up pretty soon, what is your favorite small business?
Got it. So for me, it's a bit of an international one. So there's a family-owned garment business that makes custom shirts and suits out of Hong Kong. And it's a father and son, and it used to be the grandfather. And they come to New York around every 3 to 6 months, hold up in a hotel, and you get to go, and they'll measure you and go back to Hong Kong, create custom shirts and suits, and then send it off to you. And it's really great because you turn up and they remember you and you feel like you're part of their family. And if you ever go to Hong Kong, you know that there's a welcoming family there for you.
I love that. I see, like, so talking about families and small business. Small business is really important to me. My family's always been involved in small business. My dad owned a department store before we closed that, and he went on to a different career. So right now, my favorite small business would be my godfather's store, which is Barney Sabutery. It's in Crown Point, Indiana. They've been in the area for a really long time and serving the region well. So shout out to Barney Sabutery.
Um, I don't have a personal story like that, but there's this like gift slash trinket shop like really close to my house in Chicago, and they just sell like trinkets and like they always have like the best holiday stuff, and I always like try to find like small gifts there. So that would be mine.
Yeah,
But,
I like that because like trinkets and small gifts, like small businesses have like some of the best like holiday like ideas,
so true.
and you can find all of those ideas on Pinterest. So we're going to talk a little bit. Of course, we're in our questions with Michael. We're going to talk about Pinterest as well. Michael, you ready to jump into the questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's start off with question number one. How can you engage your customers with visual content?
So I think, firstly, when you think about it, us as human beings, we are visual beings. We consume visually. We understand images 60,000 times faster than we comprehend text. We eat with our eyes. There's a reason you often say, I see what you mean. Our eyes can even deceive what we're hearing. And it really is, it has to be seen to be believed. And so, in a world where visuals are the strongest way to communicate with your consumer, you have to be true both to your brand, but also the mindset that your consumer is in when you're trying to connect with them. So, someone watching TV has a very different relationship with a commercial or branded message, and specifically with your brand's visual content, than someone driving past a billboard, reading a magazine, or someone coming to Pinterest. And generally, when they're on Pinterest, they're exhibiting, high levels of commercial intent because they're looking to plan their life or the purchases they want to make. So I think one, being authentic to the consumer's mindset and to the channel is really paramount. You spoke about seasonality on social. I think one of the biggest misnomers about Pinterest is we often get categorized as social, but we're much closer to search, in fact, visual search, with the nature that people come. They're not coming to engage with friends or their social group. They're not coming to just be entertained like some other places. They're coming ultimately to look for something, to plan for something, or to find something to buy. So how do you be authentic to that and interact with them in a completely visual realm?
Yeah, I think like visual networks are some of my favorite, especially like Pinterest and Instagram. But really, I think it's like important that your content should always be catered to those networks. It's really obvious if for your audience that follow you on different networks if you are just like copying and pasting, and they'll identify that distribution in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Um, and so moving on to Q2, how can marketers stay on top of new trends with their visual content?
Yeah, well, I would provocatively say that marketers should be the ones to create the trends. Dun dun dun. Um, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of great resources that marketers ultimately can use um, to again understand why, where, and how consumers interact with their brands. And so at Pinterest, every December we launch what we call the P100 or the Pinterest 100, which is a curated list of 100 trends where we're seeing statistical significant uptick year over year. Um, and those trends, lots of marketers are able to jump on board. So one of the best examples was we saw that there was a large female population that was going and taking over their husband sheds or garages, and they were effectively creating their own space. And so Home Depot ran with this and created an entire marketing campaign around she sheds. And they had in-store promotions. They had creative that went across all different platforms. Same thing even got used in, I think, an Allstate insurance commercial talking about she sheds, but it all came from this like inception of a trend on Pinterest. And so I think, being able to understand how the market is evolving and moving, which sometimes is very, very quick, is again key. Something that brands on Pinterest are able to do is once they set up an account and make sure it's a business account on Pinterest, they're able to claim their domain and they can just go to analytics.pinterest.com and start seeing really great insight about not only the audience that's interacting with their content, but what that audience is interested in. And so now you start gaining insights on like who and what topics and what interests and why they're coming to your content. And then you can start thinking about what marketing message you want today and what marketing message you want in the future.
So the thing that I really want to key in there is with marketers, like making the trends, right? Like that's one of the things. But we generally as marketers, we're just exposing how people feel. That's what we're really looking to do. And especially visually, but as also just like those emotions that people are talking about. And when people are talking about like anything, if you use social listening, if you use premium analytics with Sprout, like if you do anything where you're looking at the data and you're trying to like find those trends that are kind of underlying the things that are just around the curve, and then like, as you pointed out, Michael, what you do is we just take that and we expose how you're already feeling, and then we bring that to the surface. So I love that when you're talking about like marketers make the trends. We do in a lot of ways, but we're just finding out what you think already. So, all right, Q3. This one kind of bleeds in a little bit, which is what's the key to having a great seasonal marketing strategy? So talk to us about some of those strategies there.
Yeah. So I think first, identify the seasonal moments that you want to target that are important to your brand. Are they big tentpole events or micro moments? Are they geographically or culturally specific? Or are they ubiquitous no matter where you live or who you are or what background you have? On Pinterest, when we look at like a content calendar, we identify 30 plus major moments throughout the year. So Super Bowl or summer parties, holidays. And then there's, 40 plus micro moments that you're able to target, like Friendsgiving or New Year's, New You. So I think once you identify and have a mix of these kind of like an evergreen approach, big tentpole seasonal moments, maybe 4 a year, and then specific moments or micro moments you want to go target, then you start putting together your content calendar and you start thinking what creative resonates for each one of those. Joe, to your point, you're able to understand a trend, you understand a time in space where it's operating, and you're able to create a message and a story around it that resonates with your brand and your consumer.
I love what you said about like small moments like summer parties and things like that, but also like that can really range from like New Year's or like Friendsgiving or even like Thanksgiving. And so I love what you said about identifying moments that work for your specific brand, because not all of those moments will. And so one useful tool that we use at Sprout is our hashtag holiday calendar, and there's a lot of other resources out there like this. But then another tip I wanted to share was social listening could also be a useful tool for planning if you're interested to know the message volume around a certain holiday, if you're kind of trying to decide which one your brand should tap into. Do you have any other resources, Michael?
Yeah, so if you go onto our website, business.pinterest.com, you will actually find a content calendar where we break out all of the moments in the year and kind of the message or the pins and the kind of creative you might think about utilizing for that moment, as well as showing you successful pins and campaigns that have already utilized that. And so I'd say definitely go and explore what already exists. There is a treasure trove because generally, Christmas seems to come around every single year. And so I think there's an opportunity to take learnings from last Christmas, or I don't know, maybe the last, couple of eons, and figure out how you apply it to this year.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I think we'll definitely check that out this year for our planning too. So diving into Q4, how should marketers approach evergreen content?
Yeah. So I think kind of following on from that previous point, I think evergreen content really taps into um, universal life activities that all of us are trying to figure out. Someone is always moving or redecorating. Someone's always going on vacation, or they're always trying to find the next recipe for dinner. Um, what we find on Pinterest is people often come to answer like really intrinsic human questions. What do I want to eat? Where do I want to go? How do I want to dress? How do I want my house to look? And they're really human questions about what is my personal taste. And so with that, people are always getting married. They're always going to continue buying houses. More babies are always going to be born. On Pinterest, we have 322 million monthly active users who come every single month to get inspired and plan like these everyday choices and purchases. So marketers really need to create content on top of seasonal tent poles and activations against that, but really to capitalize on the generality of every single day, of those moments of waking up, of making breakfast, of trying to make a new meal or open a new bottle of wine or try a new sweater, which Joe, you and I matching. And so I think the key there is to continuously create content that speaks to everyday life, and always have it be fresh. Consumers come to Pinterest and they engage with your brand or the content that they think is interesting, but they're looking for fresh, relevant stuff. They don't need fashion trends from the 90s, even if they're coming back into style. They want to see fresh content. And so I think like you need an evergreen, always on content publishing mechanism on top of, or let's say underneath as the foundation for seasonal moments.
Yeah, in terms of 90s trends, I just want Jinko Jeans to come back real quick. But sincerely, the thing where you were talking about with evergreen content, it's things that are happening in everyday life, right? And that's obviously the key to evergreen content is it's always happening. Things are always happening. Like you said, babies and graduations and Christmas, and these things are cyclical, but they're always going to come back. Things are always going to come right back around, and things are always happening. But it's when I think about that, it's be real with it, like right, like with your brand. If you're like if your brand is like a cereal brand, you're probably like talking about certain things is probably just not going to land. And so it's like
Yeah.
looking at who you are and being real with that, and like thinking about, I love that. I love the way like the way you put it is just it's perfect, because it's things are always happening. So you have to approach your content that way of like we can make. I always used to say social is all about getting into the flow of someone else's daily life and like finding them where they are and meeting them there. And as a brand with your evergreen content, that's exactly it is. Things are always happening. Just find ways to get there. I love that.
And
Um,
when
go
it
ahead.
doesn't feel authentic, when it doesn't work, there is massive backlash. Like a large soda brand that tried to jump on, a protesting movement, and people just thought it was vapid and contrived. And so you need to be true to your brand, you need to be true to your consumers, and you need to understand like life. You know, the greatest products are the ones that we get to use every single day.
Yeah, yeah, and it's all of the things that we're doing, like we're talking about paid, we're talking organic.
Hmm.
Your evergreen strategies are going to be based around that, and that kind of leads into what our next question is, which is what are some tips for balancing a paid and organic strategy? This time we're going to focus around the holidays. So, what are some tips for balancing a paid and organic strategy around the holidays?
If I had the answers here, I would be a very rich man. Uh, I, I would say the confluence of paid media and organic media makes so much sense, and I'm often just like gobsmacked that it there is this like real or perceived wall between those organizations and those pieces of the business. I often hear paid media teams being like, we don't have content for the holidays, and we have nothing to spend our media dollars against. So their content poor. But right down the hall, like the content marketing team, they use a Sprout every single day to understand like what's resonating with the audience, what's really driving engagement, creating 300 to 400 pieces of content every single month. They're understanding like what really drives the audience, um, and what's performing. So they're content rich. And so sometimes it blows my mind. It's like politics. If everyone could just cross the aisle, and or just walk down the hall of your marketing division and collaborate, the world would be a better place. Because when it does come to paid and organic, one plus one really does equal three. So my advice, or as it gets affectionately known, musings by Mike, is to get your pay team and organic team to go and have a chat. So grab a coffee or a beer. Sprout will pay for it, and discuss your goals and align and understand where you're aligned and where there's like where there are differences that you can both together approach the same problem and fill each other's gaps and holes. And so I think the holidays is a perfect time because there's no that is a ubiquitous time. It's a ubiquitous event, whether you're running organic content or paid content. And so bringing the two worlds together specifically to understand the holidays is exactly what I believe every CMO wants. They want a blend of organic and paid. When it gets down to the teams that actually execute on that, it doesn't make sense to be siloed.
Definitely. And I think too, like that just makes a more cohesive experience for your social audience because chances are they're seeing both your organic and paid content. And so, really, like what you said, collaboration is key. And actually, our social media manager, Rachel, who's in the room with us today, meets with our paid team twice a week because
Mm.
social changes so quickly. And like just to keep, we're really resources for each other to share assets, align on goals, and share more information.
Yeah, and if I'm your consumer and I get one message organically and a completely antithetical message from paid media, like I have a disjointed experience with your brand. So it should feel like I'm having one conversation with this singular brand, no matter what medium that happens to be on.
Definitely. Yeah. And so, our final question is what's one brand that's mastering seasonality on social right now?
Ooh, just one. Um, so I think we've done really great things with our friends at eBay UK. We partnered with them last year on a Christmas campaign, specifically to increase awareness and consideration amongst millennials. Because I think a lot of people have older thought processes when it comes to eBay and what they were in the past, as well as to help close, the perception gap with the general population as they've grown and evolved into new mechanisms. And so eBay has really grown where it's no longer just around secondhand items that you can sell, but it actually is a marketplace where leading brands are selling new items and new products every single day. So we launched a campaign that considered both promoted static and video with the tagline, "Fill your cart with color." And that's color, OUR, as it's meant to be spelled. They used video to move kind of like these top funnel brand awareness metrics, and the static images with a strong call to action for kind of lower funnel click throughs, sales, conversions, etc. And we really saw a great success. Brand favorability jumped nearly 9 points. We shopping intent grew by a whopping 13 points. So the fill your cart with color campaign really was a brilliant way to show eBay's kind of vibrant and colorful products, but also the richness of all of the different ways you can use eBay around the holidays in a really inspirational and inspiring way. We're also doing great stuff with Macy's and Lowe's. And it's also why I'm so excited to work with Sprout, because you're able to give those kind of insights to brands. So it's not just taking creative that they had on their website or on Instagram or on a display or programmatic ad and just slapping it on Pinterest, but how do you actually make a conversation that resonates, engages, and inspires?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I love the idea of making those conversations go. Just a brand, I love all those brands you talked about, but the brand that first comes to mind for me is Field Notes. And I love Field Notes. They're a local Chicago brand. I use them for everything. But like taking notes behind the scenes and all of those things. But they are a design company that masquerades as a notebook company. And they make all of these different designs and they make them seasonal. So they just did for autumn. They did like these die cut like things that are like they imprint on the cover of the book, and they did them in like autumnal covers, like the colors, and they did it with like different leaves, and they made it look really great. But then they also go out and they find people that are interested in doing UGC for them, and they get pictures of their books with the leaf on it among like leaves, and they make them look just so great. And they do it all the time, and it's like because they have these seasonal releases, and they intentionally made their brand a brand that has not only seasonal releases but these designs that people anticipate, look forward to, and then create and build their own content around the design of the book themselves.
Yeah, and I also love Field Notes as an example, but two brands that I'm thinking about this holiday season specifically are Fresh Beauty and Whole Foods. Their holiday content is just so creative, and it's the kind of creative that just like stops you immediately in your timeline.
I love it. I love it so much. I love all of these brands. You can find all of these brands as well on Pinterest, which is where Michael's from. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. This was wonderful.
Yeah. We also want to thank everyone out there for watching. We've had so much fun in 2019.
And be sure to check out the Facebook page titled #SproutChat.
Awesome. Yes, you should definitely do that. We have some great stuff coming in the rest of 2019 in the Facebook group. So be sure to check all of that out, and we'll see y'all soon.